Welcome to Sleepy Food Lore. Tonight, we begin with honey. Imagine the world before harvest, before fields of grain or sprawling orchards. Long before humans learned to bake or brew, there were bees working quietly in the sunlight, gathering gold from flowers. The hum of the hive is not a busy sound, but a patient one. Each bee travels calmly, carefully, drawn to petals rich with sweetness. There is no hurry. The work of making honey is slow, as if time itself softens around the hive. In their quiet rhythm, the bees gather something more than nectar. They gather hours of sunlight, the breath of blossoms, and the stillness of summer air. What they return with is more than food. It is a memory of warmth, stored in liquid amber. Honey does not shout for attention. It glows, a small golden drop resting in a spoon, or a thin ribbon falling slowly into tea. It moves with grace, as though reluctant to disturb the calm. Like bees, we can slow ourselves to that rhythm for a while. There is no rush here, just the steady unfolding of a story about patience, gathering, and the quiet sweetness of time itself. Honey begins as nectar, gathered delicately from flowers. Each droplet is drawn up through the soft bodies of bees, carried back to the hive in quiet persistence. The bees collect from countless blossoms, gathering the smallest gifts that nature offers. In this slow and careful repetition, something remarkable begins to take shape. Inside the hive, the nectar changes. The air around it warms gently from the bees' wings. The excess water drifts away, little by little, in invisible threads of evaporation. What remains grows thicker, deeper in color and scent. It is a transformation through patience and time, through the simple act of waiting. The bees repeat their work again and again, layering their efforts in a rhythm that has not changed for thousands of years. When at last the honey is ready, they seal it within wax like sunlight kept under glass. Honey rarely spoils, even after seasons pass. It holds its promise through years and centuries because of its low moisture and its natural balance of sugars and acids. Time seems to slow inside each drop. It resists decay by being still, by remaining exactly what it is, sweet, calm, and complete. When touched by light, honey glows. When lifted on a spoon, it moves slowly, deliberate, with a weight that seems almost meditative. Its texture invites quiet attention, soft, dense, and golden, as though it remembers the warmth of the sun from which it came. The story of honey stretches back farther than written language, farther even than the earliest farms or ovens. Long before people planted fields, they found hives hidden in stone and trees, shimmering with sweetness. Honey was one of the first treasures ever tasted, something gathered, not made, taken from the patient work of bees. In ancient Egypt, honey was more than food. It was sunlight turned solid, a golden gift fit for gods and kings. The Egyptians placed jars of honey in their temples and tombs, believing it would nourish the spirit on its journey through the afterlife. Archaeologists have opened those tombs thousands of years later to find honey still preserved, still gleaming softly, still carrying the scent of forgotten flowers. The Bible weaves honey into its most tender promises, painting pictures of a land flowing with milk and honey, a phrase repeated more than 20 times across Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. God describes the land offered to the Israelites as one where milk streams from well-tended flocks and honey drips from wild rocks and hidden hives, a place of effortless plenty where both human care and nature's quiet generosity meet in harmony. This imagery is not just poetic. Archaeological finds, like ancient clay hives from Tel Rehav in Israel, reveal that honey was gathered on a grand scale, exported as a luxury good, and savored as both daily food and sacred symbol. Stories bring it to life. Samson discovers fresh comb in a lion's carcass, turning death into unexpected sweetness, while Jonathan tastes wild honey on the forest floor and feels his eyes brighten with renewed strength. Proverbs calls it wisdom itself, sweet as honey from the comb, while Ezekiel finds God's words tasting like honey in his mouth. Even manna from heaven tastes of honey wafers. For the ancient people, honey meant more than flavor. It embodied divine favor. A land where labor yields abundance without end, where sweetness flows as naturally as milk from the earth. It was a taste of paradise preserved, a golden promise that goodness endures through wilderness and time. In Greece, honey was called the gift of the heavens. It appeared in myths and medical texts alike. The physician Hippocrates wrote of honey's healing powers, praising it as both medicine and nourishment. Greek poets imagined that honey dripped from the lips of the divine, inspiring wisdom, song, and sweetness of speech. The Romans continued this reverence. They mixed honey into wines and sauces, using it to preserve fruits, to soothe wounds, and to anoint offerings to their gods. In Roman kitchens, amphorae of honey stood like quiet reservoirs of warmth, ready to sweeten breads, glaze meats, or calm the bitterness of herbal tonics. Across early civilizations, honey was more than an ingredient. It was essence itself, something sacred, something eternal. In ancient texts and prayers, honey appears as both substance and symbol of purity, of plenty, of divine favor. In India, honey was one of the 5 sacred elixirs of immortality. Through centuries, people stored honey carefully in clay jars sealed with wax and tucked away for safekeeping. Some of those jars were forgotten, resting quietly in dark corners of caves or tombs. When rediscovered, the honey inside was often unchanged, still viscous and golden, still tasting faintly of the blossoms that bloomed thousands of years before. To hold such honey is to hold time itself. It reminds us that sweetness can endure, that patience can last across ages, and that even the smallest creatures can leave behind something eternal. Honey has carried deep cultural symbolism across the world, often standing for sweetness, blessing, and a bridge between the human and the divine. In many ancient myths, honey is imagined as more than food. It is described as a substance of life, wisdom, and even immortality, sometimes called the food of the gods that brings strength and vitality to those who taste it. In some traditions, it appears in stories as a kind of golden thread between heaven and earth, given by deities or sacred bees who move silently between worlds. Honey is seen not just as something sweet on the tongue, but as something that can sweeten speech, thought, and even destiny itself. In India, honey is honored as one of the elixirs of immortality, a sacred element used in rituals that celebrate purity, prosperity, and divine nourishment. In Hindu traditions, it is part of offerings that bathe sacred images, a gentle stream of sweetness poured over the forms of beloved gods, symbolizing devotion and the wish that life itself might become as gentle and sweet as honey. Honey also appears in stories of enlightenment and wisdom, where it nourishes wandering sages and is praised in early sacred texts as a gift that can sustain both body and spirit. In the Jewish tradition, honey becomes a quiet hope for the future. During the new year, apples are dipped into honey with simple, tender wishes that the coming days will be sweet, kind, and generous. In this way, honey is not just a flavor, but a prayer you can taste, a small, glowing promise that the year ahead may unfold with gentleness and joy. In Islamic tradition, honey is described in sacred texts as a remedy and a sign of mercy, a healing gift flowing from the work of small, obedient creatures. It is praised for its power to soothe illness and support health, and so it becomes a symbol of divine care, like a quiet medicine given directly from the natural world. Each spoonful can be seen as a reminder that creation holds both sweetness and healing, wrapped together in a single golden drop. In many cultures of the Middle East and beyond, honey flows through wedding rituals and celebrations of love, where couples feed each other small tastes of honey to invite sweetness and harmony into their shared life. The gesture is simple, a fingertip or a spoon touched to the lips, but it carries a long history of hope, suggesting that the days ahead might be as smooth and tender as honey itself. In some traditions, honey is also given to guests as a sign of hospitality, a gentle way of saying, "May your time here and your journey onward be sweet." Across many places and centuries, honey has marked important spiritual paths. It appears in offerings poured out at shrines, brushed onto bread for festival tables, and mixed into drinks used in sacred ceremonies that honor gods, ancestors, and the turning of the seasons. Because it keeps so well and shines with its own natural light, honey has often stood for abundance that does not fade, for blessings that can endure, and for a gentle kind of joy that lingers on the tongue and in memory. From the diverse honeys of distant landscapes, another gentle path emerges, one where honey itself transforms through time and quiet fermentation. Mead drifts through history like a quiet fermentation of honey and time, a golden drink born from the hive's patient gift blended with water and wild yeasts. It invites us into an ancient ritual where sweetness meets stillness, perfect for unwinding into evening's embrace. Long before vineyards or grain fields shaped the land, early hands discovered mead by leaving honeyed water to dream in the sun. The yeasts, tiny and unseen, drift from air and flowers, finding the sweet liquid and beginning their slow dance, turning sugars into a soft alcohol glow over weeks or moons. No fire or forge is needed, just time, a clay vessel, and the earth's invisible breath. The result flows warm and ancient, lighter than wine, yet deeper than simple hydration, carrying echoes of meadows in every sip. In old European halls, mead warmed feasts under thatched roofs, poured from horns into wooden cups for warriors and storytellers alike. Norse tales speak of it as Odin's gift, stolen from divine halls to share with poets, while Celtic hands offered it at weddings to bless new unions with sweetness for a year and a day. Across Asia and Africa, similar honey brews marked solstices and rites, sipped slowly by firelight to honor the bees' labor and the season's turn. To welcome mead into your evening, seek a bottle from trusted makers, wildflower or oak-aged, or begin your own with care. Fill a clean glass jar with 1 part honey to 4 parts spring water, stirring until the honey ribbons dissolve completely into clear promise. Cover loosely with cloth and place in a dark, cool spot, tasting daily after 7 days as bubbles whisper awake. When the sweetness softens to your liking, after 2 weeks or 2 months, strain gently, bottle, and let rest another moon for smoothness. Pour a small measure into a mug, warm faintly if desired, and sip by candlelight, letting the floral warmth unfold across the tongue like a memory settling into bones. Mead closes moments with reverence, its honey roots reminding us of slowness amid the rush of years. Raise the cup without hurry. Taste the layers, floral at first, then earth and faint tang, and feel the body ease toward rest. Like bees folding into the hive at dusk, let this ancient nectar guide you into deep, untroubled sleep. Honey reveals its quiet wonders through the patient science of bees, a process that unfolds like a gentle ritual within the hive. Worker bees, those tireless yet calm gatherers, venture out to flowers and draw nectar through their long, delicate proboscises. The nectar, mostly water with hints of sugar, fills a special pouch in their bodies called the honey stomach, separate from where they digest their own food. Back at the hive, the transformation begins softly. The forager bee passes the nectar mouth to mouth to younger house bees in a slow regurgitation, a tender exchange where enzymes from their saliva start breaking down complex sugars into simpler ones like glucose and fructose. This enzymatic work, gentle and precise, begins turning watery nectar into something richer, more stable. The bees then deposit the partially changed nectar into beeswax cells, spreading it thin to invite evaporation. With their wings, they create a warm, steady breeze inside the hive, fanning away moisture drop by drop until the water content falls from nearly 80% to around 18%. This patient drying thickens the nectar into true honey, dense and golden, resistant to spoilage because its low water and natural acids create an environment where bacteria cannot thrive. Once ready, the bees seal each cell with a thin cap of fresh wax, preserving the honey like a secret kept for winter. In her lifetime, a single bee makes only about 1/12 of a teaspoon, but together, their quiet repetition fills the comb with liquid sunlight. This is the natural science of honey, not rushed chemistry, but a slow alchemy of time, warmth, and communal care. Within the quiet routines of the hive, worker bees move in a rhythm that feels almost like breathing, steady, repetitive, and unhurried. Each worker follows her role with gentle precision. The foragers return laden with nectar, the house bees tend to the combs, and the guards watch silently at the entrance. Their days unfold through countless small repetitions, cleaning cells, feeding larvae, and building wax with the lightest touch of their bodies. There is no chaos, only a shared pulse that holds the hive together through seasons of warmth and cold. Traditional beekeeping honors this rhythm with equal calm. For centuries, keepers in woven baskets or clay pots approached hives softly, using smoke from herbs to soothe the bees into stillness. They lifted frames by hand, letting the bees settle before taking only what the hive could spare, leaving plenty for the colony to thrive. In places like the ancient hills of Europe or the sunlit groves of the Mediterranean, beekeepers sang low songs or whispered to their charges, trusting the bees to share their golden stores without force or haste. Modern beekeeping follows a similar patience, though with tools shaped by care. Inspectors wear veils of fine mesh and light suits, moving through apiaries at dawn or dusk when the bees rest most quietly. They use gentle brushes or soft puffs of smoke to clear bees from frames, checking for health and space before harvesting. Hives stand in painted boxes, stacked neatly in fields or orchards, where beekeepers monitor temperatures and feed sugar syrup if blooms grow scarce, all to support the bees' own quiet work. Harvesting remains a tender act, without urgency or rush. Frames heavy with capped honey are carried to a warm room, where the wax seals are sliced away with a heated knife that glides smoothly. The comb spins slowly in extractors, letting honey flow out through gentle centrifugal force, drop by golden drop. What remains is strained through fine sieves, then rested in buckets to let air rise and settle, until the honey lies still and clear, ready to be poured into jars under soft light. This is stewardship, not seizure, a quiet partnership where humans listen to the hive's own pace. Honey comes in many gentle variations, each shaped by the land, the flowers, and the care taken in its keeping. The types of honey reflect a quiet diversity, inviting us to notice the subtle ways nature paints sweetness with different shades and stories. Raw honey is gathered straight from the hive and left unchanged, holding all the delicate pollen, enzymes, and traces of wax that the bees have woven into it. Unlike processed honey, which is heated and filtered to a uniform clarity, raw honey keeps its wild texture and full, living depth. It may cloud or settle with fine particles, but this is its honest nature, a taste of the hive as it truly is. Light honeys glow pale gold or almost white, flowing smooth and mild with floral whispers on the tongue. Dark honeys carry deeper amber or mahogany tones, richer and more robust, often with earthy notes that linger warmly. The color comes not from age, but from the strength of the blossoms the bees visit. Clover and acacia for lightness, buckwheat or forest blooms for depth. The flavor and color of honey shift softly with its floral source, as if each flower leaves its own signature in the golden liquid. Bees gather from fields of lavender to create honey that hums with calm herbal sweetness, or from orange blossoms for a citrus bright lift. Chestnut honey turns bold and tannic, while thyme adds a faint, resinous mystery, each variety a memory of the season's quiet bouquet. Regional differences shape honey's character through local soils, climates, and blooms. In Mediterranean hills, rosemary and wild herbs yield fragrant, sun-warmed jars. Alpine pastures offer cool, crisp honey from high meadows, while coastal regions blend sea air with salt-kissed flowers for a subtle minerality. These places imprint their essence, making each honey a taste of its home ground. Crystallized honey forms soft grains over time, turning creamy and spreadable rather than liquid. This happens naturally as glucose separates in cooler air, creating a texture like quiet snow in the jar. To soften it gently, place the jar in warm water, not hot, just body temperature, for a slow melt that preserves every bit of its flavor and life. Honey travels the world in quiet celebration, shaped by each region's flowers, climates, and traditions. From rugged mountains to sunlit coasts, its flavors carry the stories of distant landscapes and patient hands. In the rolling meadows of Europe, wildflower honeys emerge from endless fields of clover, heather, and alpine blooms. French honey from the Pyrenees whispers of mountain herbs, while Scottish heather honey thickens with a smoky, floral depth that clings softly to the spoon. These honeys blend dozens of blossoms, creating complex layers that unfold slowly, like a summer hillside at dusk. The Mediterranean offers honeys kissed by sun and sea. Thyme honey from Greece and Turkey glows dark amber, with resinous notes that evoke dry hillsides and ancient stone walls. Orange blossom honey from Spain and Sicily drips with citrus brightness, carrying the fleeting perfume of spring orchards where bees dance among white petals under endless blue skies. In Africa and the Middle East, honey weaves into daily life and ritual. Ethiopian highland honey, gathered from wild forest hives, tastes of acacia and wild berries. Often fermented in a tej, a gentle honey wine shared at gatherings. In Yemen and Saudi Arabia, sid or honey from the sacred jujube tree is prized for its deep, medicinal richness, stored in clay pots and offered as a symbol of hospitality and blessing. Across Asia, honey seasons teas, sweets, and medicines with local grace. In India, lychee honey from Himalayan foothills adds floral lightness to chai, while Chinese longan honey soothes with subtle fruit notes, used in remedies dating back millennia. Japanese honey from slash pine forests carries a rare, buttery warmth, drizzled sparingly over rice cakes or blended into hot sake for quiet evenings. Honey has long offered gentle comfort to the body and spirit, a quiet companion in moments of unease rather than a forceful remedy. Across generations, people have turned to its warmth and smoothness, letting it ease the everyday aches of living with a soothing touch. When a throat feels raw from cold air or weary words, a spoonful of honey can bring calm relief. It coats the tender lining softly, like a whisper of silk, allowing breath and voice to flow more easily again. In quiet winters past, families kept jars by the hearth, sharing small tastes to hush coughs and settle restless nights. Ancient hands reached for honey when skin needed tending, spreading it over scrapes and burns with careful fingers. Its natural embrace draws out soreness and holds moisture close, fostering a peaceful healing beneath. From desert healers to forest herbalists, it was a familiar friend wrapped around injuries like a bandage of sunlight. A drizzle of honey into warm water or tea unfolds as a simple ritual of care. The liquid carries its sweetness through steam and sips, warming from within with a tender glow. Stirred slowly, it invites pauses, breaths between sips, turning ordinary moments into quiet havens of restoration. Honey lingers as a source of ease, not urgency, a golden thread through stories of comfort that invites us to rest in its patient embrace. Manuka honey from New Zealand carries a deep, earthy story rooted in the rugged landscapes and ancient traditions of the Maori people. It flows from the small, resilient Manuka bush, with its tough leaves and quiet blooms that are coastal hills and wild moors. The Maori have long cherished Manuka honey, gathering it with reverence from wild hives hidden among the branches. They valued its robust warmth, using it sparingly in rituals and daily life, always with a sense of respect for the land that offers it so generously. Elders passed down stories of its place in their world, a humble gift tended through generations of careful stewardship. Manuka honey holds a natural strength drawn from the Manuka bush itself, including gentle antibacterial qualities that whisper of the plant's enduring resilience. Names like UMF and MGO appear on jars as quiet markers of its potency, chosen thoughtfully by those who know its origins best. Yet it shines most in tradition, handled with intention rather than haste. This honey invites mindful use, a single drop stirred into water or rested on the tongue, always approached with the same care the Maori bring to their treasured whenua, the land. Honey weaves into everyday rituals with a deliberate slowness that turns simple moments into quiet ceremonies of warmth and care. Drizzling honey begins with a steady hand, tilting the jar just enough for a thin golden thread to emerge. The honey clings to the rim for a lingering breath, then falls in a graceful arc on a bread or yogurt, pooling softly without a splash. Each drop lands with patience, inviting the eyes to follow its unhurried path and the senses to savor the anticipation. Measuring honey with a spoon calls for gentle attention, as it coats the metal with a viscous embrace that resists quick release. The spoon dips into the jar, lifts a precise measure, and pauses, letting the excess slide back in lazy trails. A quick rinse under warm water or wiping with a damp cloth frees it cleanly, leaving behind the faint scent of flowers on the fingertips. Waiting for honey to fall from the jar unfolds like a meditation in stillness. The lid twists free, and the honey rests at first, reluctant to move, forming a small dome at the mouth. Time softens it, a minute perhaps two, until gravity takes hold, and it begins to flow in slow, hypnotic ribbons that stretch and reconnect, filling the quiet with a sense of timeless flow. Stirring honey into warm milk or tea transforms the steam into a fragrant haze as the golden swirl dissolves with lazy spirals. The spoon circles once, twice, drawing the sweetness through the liquid until it vanishes completely, leaving only a uniform glow of warmth. Each sip carries the blended comfort, smooth and enveloping, like a hush settling over the evening. Quiet evening habits with honey often begin as the light fades, when the day's edges soften into twilight hush. A jar appears on the wooden table, lit by the glow of a single lamp, and hands move without rush, drizzling it over a slice of bread still warm from the oven, or blending it into a mug of chamomile tea that steams gently beside a book. Sometimes it crowns a bowl of oats, simmered slow with oats and cinnamon, the honey sinking in to create pockets of deeper sweetness that reveal themselves bite by bite. In these moments, the ritual quiets the mind, fingers tracing the jar's cool glass, the faint clink of the spoon against porcelain, the slow chew that lingers on the tongue. Honey becomes the anchor of unwinding, a golden pause before sleep claims the night, wrapping the senses in a blanket of floral memory and calm repose. Baking and cooking with honey invites a slow, tactile dance in the kitchen, where its natural warmth enhances flavors and textures with gentle persistence. Honey finds a natural home in breads and cakes, lending a subtle floral depth that blooms as the oven warms. In rustic loaves like honey-o bread, it softens the crumb and gilds the crust with a tender sheen, while in simple cakes, it weaves through spices like cinnamon or ginger, creating layers of comfort that linger on the palate. Replacing sugar with honey happens gently, often using 3/4 of the amount to match the sweetness while adding a whisper of complexity. The liquid nature of honey means batters loosen slightly, calling for a touch less flour or milk to keep the balance soft and yielding. Honey encourages slower browning in the oven, its sugars caramelizing at a calm pace rather than rushing to darken. This gives bakers time to watch the edges turn golden gradually, filling the air with a faint, toasty perfume that builds without hurry. Its affinity for moisture helps baked goods stay tender longer, holding steam close within the crumb to resist drying out over days. A honey-laced cake or muffin remains plush, almost restorative, as if the sweetness cradles each bite in quiet hydration. Long, repetitive stirring and folding become meditative acts with honey, as the thick liquid folds into butter or eggs with deliberate strokes. The spoon glides through the mixture in wide, unhurried circles, coaxing the honey to blend fully without shocking the emulsion, until the batter gleams uniform and ready for the pan. Sleepy honey-based recipes unfold with the same unhurried grace that honey itself embodies, turning simple ingredients into quiet rituals of nourishment and rest. Toast and honey. Take a slice of bread and place it gently into the toaster. While the bread warms, lift the lid from a jar of honey and select a clean spoon. Dip the spoon slowly into the honey, letting it coat the surface fully, then draw it out with a measured lift. Hold the spoon above the warm toast for a moment, allowing the honey to begin its slow drip in a thin, golden thread. Tilt the spoon further until the honey falls in soft ribbons across the bread, covering it evenly without rush. Set the spoon down beside the jar, pick up a knife, and spread the honey with long, deliberate strokes that smooth it into every warm crevice. Then take a small bite, feeling the heat melt the sweetness against your tongue. Honey tea. Fill a kettle with water and turn it on. While the water warms, reach for a tea bag of chamomile or your chosen herbal tea and lower it gently into a mug. When the water steams softly, pour it over the tea bag in a steady stream, watching the color bloom slowly. Take a spoon from the drawer and dip it into the jar of honey, gathering a full measure that clings to the metal. Hold the spoon above the tea for a few seconds, letting the first drop fall and dissolve into ripples. Stir the honey in with wide, Unhurried circles until the golden swirl vanishes completely into the amber liquid. Set the spoon down on a small plate. Lift the mug to your lips and sip the warmth slowly, letting each breath carry the floral calm inward. Honey and oats. Measure half a cup of rolled oats into a small saucepan, then add 1 cup of milk or water. Place the pan over the lowest heat on the stove, stirring the oats into the liquid with a wooden spoon in slow, repetitive sweeps. As the mixture warms, it thickens gradually. Pause to scrape the sides, then continue to stir until creamy strands form. Turn off the heat and lift the lid from your honey jar. Select a spoon and draw out a generous dollop, holding it above the oats for a moment to let the excess slide back lazily. Drizzle the honey over the warm oats in a gentle spiral, watching it sink into the soft valleys. Set the spoon aside, take a fork, and blend the honey through with long strokes that distribute the sweetness evenly. Let the bowl rest untouched for 2 minutes. Then spoon a portion slowly, savoring the oat's tender embrace around each golden bite. Honey loaf. Preheat your oven to a gentle 160 degrees Celsius and prepare a small loaf tin by rubbing the inside with soft butter, then dusting it lightly with flour that you tap out over the sink. In a bowl, crack 2 eggs and whisk them softly with a fork. Measure 3/4 of a cup of honey into a jug, then pour it slowly into the eggs while stirring in wide circles, blending until the mixture gleams smooth. Add 1 cup of flour, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and a pinch of cinnamon, folding them in with a spatula. Lift from the bottom, turn over the top, and repeat without haste until no dry traces remain. Pour the batter into the tin with a steady tilt. Then tap the tin once on the counter to settle it. Slide the tin into the oven and bake for 40 minutes, checking once at 30 minutes by inserting a skewer that comes out clean. Remove the tin. Let it cool on a wire rack for 15 minutes. Then turn the loaf out gently. Slice a warm piece. Drizzle a fresh thread of honey across the top and let it rest before tasting. More sleepy honey-based recipes invite us deeper into evening rituals, each one unfolding with deliberate steps and sensory pauses for calm preparation. Lemon and honey drink. Fill a kettle with fresh water from the tap, and while the water warms, cut a fresh lemon in half and squeeze the juice from 1/2 into a mug, watching the pale liquid pool at the bottom. Slice a thin round from the other half and drop it into the mug for a faint citrus scent to rise. When the water steams softly, pour it in a steady stream over the lemon, filling the mug 3/4 full. Lift the lid from your jar of honey and select a clean spoon, dipping it deeply to gather a full, rounded measure that clings thickly to the metal. Hold the spoon above the warm water, letting the first golden drop fall and ripple outward. Stir until the honey dissolves completely into a glowing elixir. Set the spoon down on a saucer, lift the mug with both hands, and sip gradually, feeling the warmth spread through the chest and limbs. Honey and milk bedtime drink. Pour 1 cup of whole milk into a small saucepan and set it over low heat, stirring occasionally with a wooden spoon as tiny bubbles form at the edges. When the milk steams faintly, turn off the heat and let it sit for 1 minute to cool just enough. Ladle the warm milk into a large mug, then add a tablespoon of honey. Stir well in deliberate circles, using the spoon to trace figure eights through the milk until the golden flecks vanish into creamy uniformity. Grate a whisper of fresh nutmeg over the top if desired, or leave it plain for simplicity. Carry the mug to your resting place, wrap hands around its warmth, and sip in unhurried measures, letting each swallow lull the body towards sleep. Honey yogurt bowl. Spoon 1 cup of thick Greek yogurt into a deep ceramic bowl, letting it settle into a smooth mound. Into the yogurt, slice fresh strawberries or a banana into thin rounds. Lift 2 tablespoons of honey from the jar, holding each above the yogurt to let long strands descend in spirals that sink into the white surface. Pause between spoons to watch the honey marble through the yogurt, creating golden veins. Scatter a handful of chopped nuts or granola lightly over the top. Then blend just enough for harmony. Let the bowl rest untouched for 2 minutes. Then eat in measured bites, feeling the cool cream yield to warm sweetness. Honey and peanut butter sandwich. Spread 2 heaping tablespoons of natural peanut butter onto 1 slice of soft whole grain bread, using the back of a spoon to layer it evenly from edge to edge. Flip open your honey jar and drizzle 2 tablespoons in a zigzag pattern over the peanut butter, tilting the jar high for thin, unbroken lines that settle without pooling. Press the second slice of bread gently atop, aligning the edges perfectly. Then cut the sandwich diagonally with a serrated knife into 2 triangles and pause to press the halves together once more. Take a corner bite, allowing the nutty cream and honey flow to balance in a slow, lingering chew. Baking in slow oven comforts with honey fill the air with a patient warmth, drawing us into the quiet rhythm of dough rising and ovens humming softly through the evening. Honey oat bread. Warm 1 cup of milk gently in a small saucepan over low heat until it feels just tepid to the touch. Then pour it into a large mixing bowl and stir in 2 tablespoons of honey until it dissolves completely into silky threads. Sprinkle 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast over the surface and let it sit undisturbed for 10 minutes, watching tiny bubbles form as it awakens softly. Add 1 cup of rolled oats, 2 cups of bread flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of softened butter. Then mix with a wooden spoon and long, deliberate pulls until a shaggy dough gathers. Turn the dough onto a lightly floured surface and knead gently for 8 minutes, folding it over itself rhythmically like turning a letter, pressing with the heel of your hand, then pushing forward until it turns smooth and elastic. Shape it into a ball, place it in a lightly oiled bowl, cover with a damp tea towel, and let it rise in a warm spot for 1.5 hours until doubled in size. Punch down the dough softly with 2 fingers, shape it into a loaf, and place it in a greased 9-inch tin. Cover again and proof for 45 minutes. Preheat the oven to 190 degrees Celsius. Bake for 35 minutes until the top gleams deep gold and the loaf sounds hollow when tapped underneath. Cool on a rack, slicing to reveal the honey oat tenderness within. Honey cornbread. Preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius and place a cast iron skillet inside to warm for 10 minutes. In a bowl, whisk 1 cup of cornmeal, 1 cup of plain flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and half a teaspoon of salt together with firm strokes. In another bowl, beat 1 large egg lightly, then stir in 1 cup of buttermilk, a 1/4 cup of melted butter, and 3 tablespoons of honey until smooth ripples form. Pour the wet ingredients into the dry ones and fold gently with a spatula stopping just when no dry patches linger. Pull the hot skillet from the oven. Add 1 tablespoon of oil, swirl to coat, then pour in the batter, spreading it evenly with the back of the spoon. Return to the oven and bake for 25 minutes until the top turns golden and a skewer tests clean. Let it cool in the skillet for 10 minutes, then cut into squares, the honey lending a subtle sweetness to each crumbly bite. Honey tea cake. Butter a round 8-inch cake, tin generously, and line the bottom with parchment, preheating the oven to 165 degrees Celsius. Cream half a cup of softened butter with half a cup of honey in a bowl using a wooden spoon until fluffy and pale. Beat in 2 eggs one at a time, stirring until each is fully embraced. Sift in 1.5 cups of self-raising flour and half a cup of milk, folding alternately. Add half the flour, then half the milk more, repeating until the batter drops in thick ribbons. Spoon into the tin, smooth the top with a palette knife in gentle sweeps, and bake for 40 minutes, turning the tin halfway for even warmth. Test with a toothpick at 35 minutes. It should come out moist but clean. Cool in the tin for 20 minutes, then invert onto a plate. Dust with icing sugar if desired, serving slices warm as the honey keeps it tender. Honey banana bread. Mash 3 ripe bananas in a bowl with a fork until smooth and pudding-like. Then stir in half a cup of melted coconut oil and half a cup of honey, blending until glossy. Crack 2 eggs into the mix and whisk. Then add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and half a teaspoon of cinnamon. In a separate bowl, combine 2 cups of wholemeal flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and half a teaspoon of salt. Fold the dry into the wet in 3 additions, half cup at a time, until just combined with banana flecks visible. Fold in half a cup of chopped walnuts gently. Grease a loaf tin and pour the batter in, tapping once to settle. Bake at 170 degrees Celsius for 55 minutes, covering loosely with foil after 30 if browning too fast. Cool fully before slicing, the honey ensuring lasting softness. Honey shortbread biscuits. Beat half a cup of softened butter with a 1/4 cup of honey in a bowl until creamy and light, scraping the sides occasionally. Sift in 2 cups of plain flour and half a teaspoon of salt. Then mix with a spatula in short lifts until a soft dough forms that holds together when squeezed. Turn onto a lightly floured surface. Pat into a rectangle 1 centimeter thick and cut into 30 small rectangles with a sharp knife. Place on parchment-lined trays 1 centimeter apart. Prick each twice with a fork and chill for 30 minutes. Bake at 150 degrees Celsius for 20 minutes until pale gold at the edges, swapping trays halfway. Cool on the trays for 10 minutes, then transfer to a rack. The honey keeps them melted mouth tender. Honey spelt bread. Activate 1 teaspoon of yeast in half a cup of warm water with 1 tablespoon of honey, waiting 10 minutes for bubbles to form. In a large bowl, mix 3 cups of spelt flour, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Then pour in the yeast mix plus 1 more cup of water. Stir with a spoon in wide arcs until shaggy, then knead on a board for 12 minutes. Press, fold, quarter turn until springy. Let the dough rise covered for 1 hour. Shape into a round loaf, place on a floured tray, slash the top lightly, and proof for 30 minutes. Bake at 200 degrees Celsius in a preheated oven with steam. Place a pan of water below for 35 minutes until crusty and hollow sounding. Cool slowly under a cloth. Honey and seed flatbread. Combine 1 cup of strong bread flour, 1 teaspoon of instant yeast, half a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 cup of mixed seeds, and 2 tablespoons of honey in a bowl. Add 3/4 cup of warm water and mix to a sticky dough. Knead for 5 minutes until smooth. Divide into 4 balls, cover, then rest for 20 minutes. Roll each into a thin oval on semolina dust. Heat a dry cast iron pan over medium. Then cook each flatbread one at a time, 2 minutes per side until puffed and charred softly. Brush warm flatbreads with olive oil mixed with honey and stack them under a tea towel. Tear and share them while warm. Honey brioche style dough. Warm half a cup of milk to tepid. Dissolve 2 tablespoons honey and 2 teaspoons yeast in it. Then rest this for 10 minutes. Beat 3 eggs lightly. Add them to the yeast with 1 teaspoon of salt and half a cup of softened butter. Gradually mix in 3 cups of bread flour, kneading for 10 minutes until glossy. Let the dough rise for 2 hours until doubled in size. Chill the dough overnight. Shape into 8 rolls or a loaf the next day and proof for 1 hour. Baruch on an egg wash. Then bake at 180 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes until deep gold in. Let the brioche cool, the honey ensuring a rich softness. Traditional and cultural honey uses draw from ancient hands and hearths, where honey becomes a bridge to shared stories through simple, time-honored preparations. Greek yogurt with honey and nuts. Select a small bowl of thick Greek yogurt, about 1 cup, and spoon it gently into a wide ceramic dish, letting it settle into a smooth, creamy mound that holds its shape. Gather a handful of walnuts or almonds, roughly chopped with a heavy knife into uneven pieces that release their faint oils, and scatter them lightly over the yogurt in a loose ring around the edge. Open your jar of honey and lift a full tablespoon with a long-handled spoon, holding it high above the center so the honey falls in a slow, unbroken amber thread that spirals downward. Pause midway to let the stream stretch and reconnect. Then continue until the yogurt gleams with a golden crown. Take a teaspoon and draw gentle figure eights from the center outward, coaxing the honey to marble through the white surface without fully blending. Set the spoon aside on a small plate. Let the dish rest untouched for 2 minutes to allow the flavors to whisper together. Then dip in with a fresh spoon, savoring the cool yogurt yield against crunchy nuts and flowing sweetness. Middle Eastern honey flatbread drizzle. Bake or purchase a soft flatbread like pita or lavash, warming it briefly in a low oven until pliant and faintly fragrant. Lay the flatbread on a wooden board and drizzle 1 tablespoon of honey across its surface in a deliberate zigzag pattern, starting from one corner and weaving to the opposite end. Tilt the board slightly to encourage the honey to flow in natural rivers that pool in the bread's gentle folds. Sprinkle a pinch of nigella seeds or sesame over the top, letting them adhere softly to the sticky sheen. Fold the flatbread loosely into quarters like a quiet parcel. Press the layers together with open palms for 10 seconds, then unfold. Tear a piece by hand, lift it slowly to your lips, and bite into the warm chew where honey soaks the crumb deeply. Honey and sesame snack bars. Measure 1 cup of sesame seeds into a heavy skillet and toast them over low heat, shaking the pan gently every 30 seconds for 5 minutes until they release a nutty aroma and turn faintly golden. Then remove from the heat immediately to halt the warmth. In a small saucepan, warm half a cup of honey over medium-low, stirring once with a wooden spoon until it thins slightly but does not boil. Pour the honey over the sesame seeds in a glass bowl. Then add half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon and stir with a spatula in long, repetitive arcs until every seed gleams coated and the mixture clumps together. Line a small baking tray with parchment paper. Press the mixture into an even rectangle 1 centimeter thick using damp fingers. Then score into bars with a sharp knife. Refrigerate for 1 hour until firm, then snap along the lines. Store in an airtight tin, breaking off a bar for a slow crunch of seeds bound by honey's embrace. Simple baklava-style syrup pour. Layer 6 sheets of phyllo pastry in a small baking dish brushed with melted butter between each, tucking the edges neatly. Scatter half a cup of chopped pistachios or almonds evenly over the top sheet. Then drizzle 2 tablespoons of honey in fine lines across the nuts. Bake at 180 degrees Celsius for 15 minutes until the pastry crisps golden and the nuts toast softly. While baking, simmer a quarter cup of honey with a quarter cup of water and a cinnamon stick in a saucepan for 10 minutes until syrupy. Then remove the cinnamon stick. Remove the pastry from the oven. Pour the warm syrup slowly over the entire surface in a steady stream, watching it seep into layers and pool at the base. Let it rest uncovered for 2 hours, the air filling with spice and sweetness. Then cut into diamond shapes with a sharp knife, each piece layered with a flaky crunch and soaked tenderness. Honey rice pudding. Rinse half a cup of short grain rice under cool water until clear, then tip it into a heavy saucepan with 2 cups of full cream milk. Bring to a bare simmer over a low heat, stirring every minute with a wooden spoon in slow scrapes along the bottom to prevent sticking. Add 1 cinnamon stick and a strip of lemon peel. Then cook uncovered for 40 minutes, pausing every 5 minutes to stir deeply as the rice swells and the milk thickens to a velvety embrace. Stir in 3 tablespoons of honey, one at a time, waiting 30 seconds between each to let it dissolve fully. Remove from the heat, discard the aromatics, and ladle the rice into bowls. Let it cool for 10 minutes, allowing a skin to form softly on top. Honey semolina porridge. Tip half a cup of coarse semolina into a dry skillet and toast over a medium-low for 3 minutes, stirring constantly with a spatula until fragrant and sandy gold. Transfer the semolina to a bowl. Then in the same pan, warm 2 cups of milk with a vanilla pod split lengthwise, bringing it to a gentle simmer. Rain the semolina into the milk in a thin, steady stream while whisking vigorously with a fork for 2 minutes until lumps vanish and it thickens instantly. Reduce the heat to the lowest setting. Stir in a quarter cup of honey. Then cook for 5 more minutes, stirring every 30 seconds to draw out the nutty depth. Remove from the heat. Whisk in 1 tablespoon of butter if desired, and pour into a deep bowl. Let it sit for 2 minutes, then eat with a spoon that sinks through the warm, golden mound. Honey-drizzled feta or cheese plate. Select a block of creamy feta or soft goat cheese, about 100 grams, and place it whole on a slate board or shallow dish. Score the top lightly with a sharp knife in a diamond pattern, shallow enough to whisper through the rind. Warm 2 tablespoons of honey very gently in a small pan, just until fluid, not hot. Then spoon it from a height in slow pours that cascade over the peaks and fill the cuts. Surround with fresh thyme sprigs or quartered figs, letting their scents mingle. Set this aside for 15 minutes, the honey softening the cheese beneath while flavors bloom. Break off a piece with a fork, letting the honey string between tines, and taste the cool salt yielding to floral warmth. Honey and olive oil bread dip. Pour 3 tablespoons of fragrant extra virgin olive oil into a shallow saucer, swirling gently to coat the base evenly. Add 1 tablespoon of honey to the center. Then tilt the saucer in slow circles until the honey ribbons through the oil without fully blending, creating golden swirls suspended in green gold oil. Sprinkle a pinch of sea salt flakes and cracked black pepper over the surface, watching them settle into the sheen. Tear a chunk of crusty bread, sourdough or ciabatta, by hand into a manageable piece. Dip one edge into the mixture and turn it slowly to capture both oil and honey strands. Lift to your lips, bite deliberately, feeling the bread's crunch give way to slick silk and blooming sweetness on the tongue. Repeat, each dip drawing fresh marbling from the saucer. Medicinal and soothing honey preparations offer quiet comfort through time-honored blends, where honey's gentle nature cradles simple ingredients into balms for the body's evening ease. Honey and ginger soothing syrup. Peel a thumb-sized piece of fresh ginger root and grate it finely over a small saucepan, letting the juicy strands fall loosely until you have 2 tablespoons. Add half a cup of water and place the pan over low heat, bringing it to a soft simmer while stirring occasionally with a wooden spoon until the liquid turns fragrant and pale gold. Strain the mixture through a fine sieve into a glass jar, pressing gently on the ginger pulp with the back of a spoon to extract every drop of essence. While still warm, stir in half a cup of honey, 2 tablespoons at a time, waiting 30 seconds between each addition until it dissolves into a thick, shimmering syrup. Seal the jar loosely and let it cool completely at room temperature. Then tighten the lid and store in the refrigerator. Take 1 teaspoon straight from the jar as needed, or stir into warm water, feeling the spicy warmth unfold slowly against the throat. Honey lemon throat mixture. Juice 1 ripe lemon into a small glass bowl, straining out the seeds and pulp to leave half a cup of clear, pale liquid that catches the light. Grate the zest from half the lemon peel finely over the juice, adding a whisper of citrus brightness. Spoon half a cup of honey into the bowl, starting with quarter-cup measures, and stir with a clean spoon in wide, deliberate arcs until the mixture turns smooth and opaque, with faint zest flecks suspended like stars. Pour into a glass jar with a tight lid, tapping it once on the counter to release air bubbles. Let it rest in a cool pantry for 2 hours to allow flavors to settle deeply. Swirl 1 tablespoon into warm water or take directly on a spoon, the tart lemon yielding to honey's soothing veil. Honey and apple cider vinegar tonic. Measure 2 tablespoons of raw apple cider vinegar into a glass measuring cup. Then add half a cup of warm water from a freshly boiled kettle, stirring once to dilute the sharpness. Lift 1 tablespoon of honey from your jar, holding it high to drizzle slowly into the liquid in a thin, unbroken stream that swirls through the water. Stir with a spoon, taste, and then adjust with a touch more honey if the tang calls for balance. Pour into a mug, cup it in both hands, and drink in tiny sips over 10 minutes. The vinegar's bites softening into honeyed equilibrium that settles warmly within. Honey-infused garlic. Peel 6 plump garlic cloves one by one, slicing each clove into thin rounds that release a faint, pungent mist. Tip the slices into a clean glass pint jar, filling it loosely to the halfway mark without packing tight. Pour half a cup of honey over the garlic slowly, tilting the jar to let it cascade between the pieces and fill every crevice. Use a chopstick or skewer to stir gently from the bottom up, releasing air pockets and coating each slice evenly. Seal the jar loosely with a lid and place it in a dark cupboard for 1 week, opening daily to stir once and burp the jar, allowing bubbles to escape softly. After 7 days, the garlic turns milky and tender, infused with honey's glow. Take 1 clove daily, chewed slowly or swallowed whole, its fire tamed into mellow warmth. Honey and turmeric paste. Grate 1 thumb of fresh turmeric root into a small mortar, adding a pinch of black pepper. Pound gently with the pestle in rhythmic presses until a smooth paste begins to form, releasing an earthy perfume. Spoon 3 tablespoons of honey into the mortar, then fold it in with the pestle using lifting and turning motions until the mixture gleams uniform and thick. Scrape into a small glass pot, smoothing the top with the back of the spoon. Seal and store in the refrigerator where it firms slightly. Stir half a teaspoon into warm milk or water each evening, the turmeric's depth blooming softly under honey's calming hold. Slow dessert and nighttime comforts with honey embrace the oven's gentle heat and the night's quiet, creating treats that soothe with lingering warmth and subtle sweetness. Baked honey apples. Select 4 firm apples. Braeburn or Granny Smith work beautifully, and slice the tops off evenly, setting them aside like little lids. Core each apple carefully with a paring knife and spoon, leaving the base intact to form a deep well that holds treasures. Place the apples upright in a small baking dish. Then spoon 1 tablespoon of honey into each cavity, watching it pool at the bottom amid faint fruit juices. Scatter a pinch of cinnamon and 3 walnut halves chopped roughly over the honey in each, letting the nuts nestle into the golden liquid. Pour a 1/4 cup of water into the bottom of the dish to create a soft steam, then cover loosely with foil. Slide the dish into an oven preheated to 160 degrees Celsius and bake for 40 minutes, removing the foil after 20 to let the tops caramelize slowly. Test tenderness with a skewer at 35 minutes. It should pierce effortlessly. Rest the apples for 10 minutes, replace their lids, and spoon the warm syrup from the dish over each before eating, the skins yielding to steamy, honeyed flesh. Honey custard. Warm 2 cups of full cream milk in a saucepan over low heat until tiny bubbles kiss the edges and steam rises faintly, then remove from heat. In a bowl, whisk 4 egg yolks gently with a fork until smooth, then drizzle in half a cup of honey in a thin stream, whisking continuously in wide arcs to blend without cooking the eggs. Gradually pour the warm milk into the egg mixture through a fine sieve, stirring steadily with a spatula and figure eights to create a silken veil. Divide into 4 ramekins set in a larger baking dish. Then pour hot water into the dish to reach halfway up the ramekins. Bake at 150 degrees Celsius for 35 minutes until the centers tremble softly when shaken. Cool at room temperature for 1 hour, then chill in the refrigerator for 2 hours. Run a knife around the edges, invert onto plates, and let the custard slip free, pooling with its own honeyed glow. Honey rice cakes. Rinse half a cup of glutinous rice under cold water until clear, then soak it in a bowl with 2 cups of water for 30 minutes. Drain and tip into a small saucepan with 1 can of coconut milk and a 1/4 cup of honey, stirring to dissolve. Bring to a gentle simmer over a medium-low heat. Then reduce to the lowest flame and cook uncovered for 40 minutes, stirring every few minutes with a wooden spoon in deep scrapes, each pause allowing the rice to swell lazily. The mixture will thicken to a glossy porridge, but if it's too thick, add 2 tablespoons of water midway. Spoon into 4 small bowls or molds, pressing gently to compact. Then chill uncover in the refrigerator for 2 hours until set firm. Unmold by dipping the base briefly in warm water, then slice into wedges. Drizzle with an extra thread of honey, tasting the chewy rice yield to creamy sweetness. Honey-baked pears. Half 4 ripe pears lengthwise. Core them with a melon baller to leave clean hollows, and place cut side up in a roasting tin. Spoon 1 tablespoon of honey into each cavity, letting it overflow slightly onto the fruit. Then tuck a thin slice of butter and a star anise into the center of each. Squeeze the juice from half a lemon over the pears evenly. Then pour a 1/4 cup of white wine or apple juice into the tin's base. Cover with foil and bake at 170 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes. Then uncover and baste with the pan juices before roasting for 10 minutes more until the edges curl softly and skins wrinkle tenderly. Baste once again, rest for 5 minutes, and serve warm, spooning the spiced honey syrup generously over each half as the pear flesh melts into fragrant pools. Honey oat crumble topping. Combine 1 cup of rolled oats, half a cup of plain flour, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and half a teaspoon of cinnamon in a bowl, stirring with a fork to mingle evenly. Melt a 1/4 cup of butter in a small pan. Then stir in 3 tablespoons of honey until it bubbles faintly for 30 seconds, then remove from the heat. Pour the warm honey butter over the dry mix and fold with a spatula in long lifts until loose clumps form that hold together when squeezed. Scatter generously over fruit like baked apples or a simple berry bake in a dish, pressing lightly with fingertips. Bake at 180 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes alongside your dessert, rotating the dish halfway until the top turns golden and crisp. Cool for 10 minutes to set the crunch, then break into shards, the oats toasting softly around honeyed warmth. Honey meets the body with a gentle sweetness that unfolds like a quiet invitation, easing into the rhythms of digestion without demand or haste. Its sugars, fructose and glucose, release energy slowly through the evening hours, a steady glow rather than a sudden spark. Picture a spoonful settling warmly in the stomach, dissolving bit by bit to nourish the night ahead, carrying the body through dreams with a soft, sustained hum of calm vitality that lingers until morning light. Traditional beliefs hold honey as a soother of the inner landscape, a golden thread calming the body's subtle churn. In old village hearths and desert tents, elders spoke of its warmth smoothing the stomach's folds, quieting the faint gurgles of unrest after heavy meals or restless days. They saw it as nature's patient balancer, drawing tension away like dew lifting from grass, leaving behind a stillness that invites deeper breaths and unhurried repose. Evening-friendly uses weave honey into the close of day with with tender simplicity. Stir it into a mug of warm milk as twilight deepens, watching the golden strands swirl and fade into creamy clouds. Then sip it by lamplight while the world outside hushes. Or let it crown a bowl of stewed fruit, slow-cooked pears or apples from the afternoon's quiet kitchen work. The honey sinking into soft pockets to blend sweetness with warmth, easing the evening meal into a lull of contentment. Dab a trace on the lips before bed, or blend it with a pinch of ginger and water, allowing the flavors to mingle on the tongue and settle downward in waves of tranquil diffusion. In these ways, honey becomes a companion to the body's evening cadence, its presence a whisper of ease that asks nothing but time to work its slow, enveloping grace. Storage and care. Honey deserves a quiet place to rest, cared for with the same patience it embodies from the hive. Choose glass jars with tight-fitting lids that seal without a click, placing them on cool, dry shelf away from sunlight or heat. A pantry corner or kitchen cupboard works gently, where the temperature stays steady between 15 and 20 degrees Celsius, allowing the honey to settle into stillness without shifting or sweating. Crystallization process. Crystallization visits honey as a natural, unhurried change, turning liquid gold into soft, creamy grains over weeks or months. The glucose molecules quietly separate and form tiny crystals, starting at the bottom of the jar and rising like a slow frost. This is not spoilage, but a sign of purity. Raw honey transforms most readily, while warmer storage delays the process. The texture spreads like butter, smooth and dippable, inviting a spoon to scoop through its gentle density. To soften crystallized honey, lower the jar into a bath of warm water. Not hot, just the temperature of a hand held to a cheek. Let it sit untouched for 10 minutes. Then check the flow. The crystals melt gradually from the edges inward. Repeat with fresh warm water if needed, always waiting patiently between steps until the honey loosens into its liquid amber state. A quick stir with a clean spoon blends it fully, restoring the slow pour without force. Never rush honey with boiling water or microwaves, as high heat dims its delicate enzymes and floral whispers. Overheating turns clarity cloudy and sweetness flat, stripping the living essence that bees labored to preserve. Instead, embrace the slowness. Time and gentle warmth honor the honey's nature, keeping its glow intact for seasons of quiet enjoyment. Modern considerations invite a gentle awareness to honey's place in today's world, balancing its timeless appeal with thoughtful choices. A whisper of care surrounds raw honey for our youngest ones, as its unfiltered nature holds traces from the flowers and fields. Families often wait until after the first year, choosing pasteurized options for little ones while savoring raw honey's depth themselves. This pause honors both tradition and tenderness, letting honey enter lives at its own quiet pace. For those weaving plant-based paths, agave nectar flows with a light, neutral sweetness drawn from desert blue agaves, while maple syrup offers an amber warmth tapped from northern forests. These alternatives drizzle and blend with similar grace, bringing their own floral or woody stories to teas and baked goods. Each carries a unique rhythm, inviting exploration without judgment. Ethical sourcing turns toward beekeepers who tend hives with respect, ensuring bees thrive amid blooms and seasons. Some jars reveal small batch tales from family apiaries, where hands harvest only what nature spares. A gentle note lingers on blends or syrups, sometimes called pretend honey, made from rice or dates to mimic the glow. Yet true honey shines from patient wings and wild petals. Small batch producers craft honey close to its source, nurturing a handful of hives in backyards or meadows for flavors tied to single fields. Their jars arrive unhurried, often labeled with the season's blooms or the hillside's name, fostering a quiet connection between the land and the spoon. Choosing them supports ripples of care that echo through buzzing meadows and steady hands. As our journey through honey draws toward its gentle close, let the golden stillness settle softly around you. Honey stands as time made visible, a liquid amber that captures the slow pulse of seasons, the patient labor of wings, and the quiet breath of blossoms long faded. Each jar holds hours of sunlight, gathered drop by drop, preserved through ages without haste or decay. Picture the bees now, their day's work done, slipping one by one back into the shadowed hush of the hive. They move without sound, clustering close in the waxen comb, their tiny forms curling into rest as twilight deepens outside. The entrance glows faintly with the last light, then dims as the colony breathes as one, waiting for dawn's first warmth. On your shelf, the jars rest undisturbed, rows of quiet guardians, their lids sealed tight, contents gleaming through glass like stars held in earthbound sleep. No rush disturbs them. They wait with the same enduring calm they have always known, ready for the next unhurried moment. Let these images linger now, the hive's soft rhythm, the shelf's steady presence, the honey's timeless glow. Release the day fully, breathe into the stillness, and may a deep and restful sleep find you as you close your eyes.